I'm not going to. You know what? Those people on YouTube just have to guess where we're at. No, I'm just kidding. No. We're going to be in 2 Kings chapter number 10 for a minute, and then we're going over to 2 Kings chapter 22. But let me introduce it and explain what's going on in these two passages in just a minute. But as I explained to you, 1 Samuel is really kind of where the king's story begins. Because in the middle of 1 Samuel, Samuel's the last judge, the people ask for a king, and that's where King Saul begins. Samuel anoints him to be king, and then Samuel anoints David to be king after that. After God says Saul is being wicked and takes the kingdom from him, he anoints David. And so the book of 1 Samuel is all about, Samuel. I mean, it begins with his birth to Hannah. It's a miracle birth. It goes all the way through there. Samuel anoints the first two kings. The book of 2 Samuel is a weird name for it. I pointed that out because really it has absolutely nothing to do with Samuel. And he did not write it. He didn't because he was already dead at the time 2 Samuel took place. So the book of 2 Samuel would actually, just for your information, anytime you're studying it, would have a better title of David. Because the book of 2 Samuel is all about David, the second king of Israel. It's all about him. The book of 1 Kings begins with David a little bit, but he's dying, and he's turning his kingdom over to Solomon, the third king. And 1 Kings begins with Solomon, and then it explains the kingdom gets torn in two under Solomon's son Rehoboam. And so there becomes two kingdoms. Throughout the books of 1 and 2 Kings, they're called the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. Don't get confused when you're reading the first and 2 Kings. There's two different nations going on there. Judah and Israel. And it begins this reign of the kings. In 2 Kings and chapter number 10 and verse number 32, the Bible says, "In those days the Lord began to cut Israel short." Now when it says that, it's not talking about Judah yet. It's not talking about Judah. I just told you there's two kingdoms by this time. And so he begins to cut Israel short, and Hazael smote them in all the coasts of Israel. And it goes on. What you got to realize is going on in Israel, they haven't ever had a good king since Solomon. They have something, I think I've got 20 names listed here. They have a number of rulers and kings, and all of them are wicked. We covered that in Sunday school. Every one of these guys were awful. And that's why the Lord starts to cut their days short. And the Bible explains that Israel goes into captivity. The Assyrians conquer them. I believe present-day Assyria would be present-day Iraq. And they conquered Israel and took them into bondage. And it wouldn't be Iraq, it'd be, it might be present-day Turkey. But anyway, I'm not trying to get into all that, but Israel goes into bondage. At the end of 2 Kings, and look at chapter 22 now, this is going to be where our main text is at. So that covers Israel. Israel starts to go into bondage. Judah wound up having about 8 good kings. I can't remember all their names, but let's see. They had King Asa, King Jehoshaphat, King Jehoash, King Amaziah, King Azariah, Hezekiah. I know I'm missing one in there. I think there's another really good king in there. But then King Josiah is the last one. And we're going to look at King Josiah here this morning. I want you to remember that verse, though, that we just read. It says, in those days, the Lord began to cut Israel short. In those days. In that time, would be another way you could maybe put it. At that time, the Lord started to end Israel a little bit. He started to cut their days short. They were about to go into captivity. Look at chapter 22 and beginning with verse number 1. Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign. Keithan, how old are you?
8.
You're 8. So let's all make Keithan king. How old are you, Ethan? 6. You're too young. No. But, I mean, can you imagine having an 8-year-old rule over your nation? My word. But anyways, Josiah was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem. I'm going to do the math for you. That means he died when he was 39. Still a very young man. Okay? And he was a good king. A lot of people think just because you're living for the Lord, or just you're going to have a really long life and all that. Not necessarily. Just a spoiler alert, Josiah gets killed in battle. He goes out and fights a battle that God told him not to, and he kind of disobeyed there, and he wound up dying. We tend to emphasize that. Look, he went on to be with the Lord. He went to heaven. Okay, Josiah went on to be in heaven. It says he reigned 31 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jedidah, the daughter of Adiah of Bosketh. And look at this. We were looking at this in Sunday school about all these kings that did evil in the sight of the Lord. It says, verse 2, and he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, and walked in all the way of David his father, and turned not aside to the right hand or to the left. He decided at a young age, he decided when he was 8 years old, I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm going to be serious about walking with my Lord. We tend to think kids can't make decisions like that. Well, an 8-year-old did. He made a decision. I've heard preachers getting saved when they were 4 or 5 years old and still serving the Lord to this day. Man, that's amazing. I'm thankful for testimonies like that. Most people don't have that testimony, okay? But I'm thankful for testimonies like that. It says in verse 3, and it came to pass in the 18th year of King Josiah, so that makes him 26 at this time. He'll be 26. That the king sent Shaphan, the son of Azaliah, the son of Meshullam, the scribe, to the house of the Lord, saying, go up to Hilkiah the high priest, that he may sum the silver which is brought into the house of the Lord, which the keepers of the door have gathered of the people. And let them deliver it into the hand of the doers of the work, that have the oversight of the house of the Lord. And let them give it to the doers of the work, which is in the house of the Lord, to repair the breaches of the house, unto carpenters and builders and masons, and to buy timber and hewn stone to repair the house. Howbeit there was no reckoning made with them of the money that was delivered into their hand, because they dealt faithfully. So, what's going on here is Josiah is serving the Lord and loves the Lord so much, he wants to repair the temple. He wants to repair the house of the Lord at that time that Solomon had built. And he's trying to make things right in his nation. He's trying to do things right. He's living in a time right after King Manasseh. Okay, I don't think he was, there may have been a king, yeah, there was. Manasseh had a son named Amon, who was also wicked. But Manasseh was a very wicked king. It talks about him in chapter 21 if you want to read it. It's the first half of chapter 21. I mentioned him this morning. Manasseh, he began reigning when he was 12. Manasseh did some very awful things. He took false religion and spread it in the land. This false religion that Manasseh got them involved in was a religion of worshiping a idol named Moloch. Moloch required you to literally sacrifice your children to him. And Manasseh did that. It says in, let me see, sorry, I lost my place. Where did it? Oh, yeah. No, that's not it. I'm sorry, I lost my place. It says, let me just read it, in chapter 21, he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord after the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. He built up again the high places which Hezekiah his father had destroyed. And he reared up altars to Baal and made a grove, as did Ahab king of Israel, and worshipped all the host of heaven and served them. He built altars in the house of the Lord, of which the Lord had said, in Jerusalem will I put my name. And he built altars for all the host of heaven in the two courts of the house of the Lord. And he made his son, there it is, I was looking at the end of the verse, he made his son pass through the fire and observe times. In that false religion, he wound up sacrificing his own son to it. He wrought much wickedness in the sight of the Lord to provoke him to anger. He set a graven image of the grove that he had made in the house of the Lord. It says in verse 9, but the people hearkened not. Manasseh seduced the people to do more evil than did the nations whom the Lord destroyed before the children of Israel. It says in verse 16, moreover, Manasseh shed innocent blood very much. Jewish history has it that Manasseh killed the prophet Isaiah. They believe that he killed him by execution, had him cut in half. Okay, so very brutal king. Okay, it says that he shed innocent blood very much till he had filled Jerusalem from one end to another. Okay, nice guy, huh? Filled Jerusalem with blood is the comment of this king. Beside his sin wherewith he made Judah to sin in doing that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. Now, good news for Manasseh, 2 Chronicles includes the fact that he gets saved. You know, if the Lord could save Manasseh, I'm pretty sure he can save anybody. I'm pretty sure if the Lord could forgive those sins right there, he can forgive any sins. I'm telling you. Read it, look it up sometime. 2 Chronicles chapter 33, it's the Chronicles of the Kings. Manasseh got saved. He went to prison after this. Another king invaded and took him into prison, and he got saved in jail. So the jail ministry does work, okay? And anyways, Manasseh wound up getting saved. But the sins that he led the people into, they're still doing. Okay, they're still involved in all this. Even though Manasseh got saved and he turned away from all that junk, the people did not. And they're still involved in all that wickedness that I just read you when Josiah becomes king. This is what he's inheriting. He's 8 years old. And he's inheriting that kind of wickedness. And he has decided, I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm going to walk with the Lord. So he says, you know what? Let's repair the temple. Nobody's really cared about it for quite a while. Everybody's been worshiping all their false idols and doing their own thing. Let's repair the temple. Go and talk to Hilkiah, the high priest, and ask him, about the amount of money. Let's get this temple fixed. In verse number 8 of chapter 22, and Hilkiah the high priest said unto Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the law in the house of the Lord. That's a profound statement. First of all, he's excited that he's found the book of the law. The book of the law is the first 5 books of the Bible. He's excited that he's found the first 5 the books of Moses. I'm excited I found them. Woohoo! This is awesome. The next question I have is, how in the world did they lose that? You see, what happens in nations, especially nations that are serving the one true God of the Bible, they'll start off on fire. I mean, they will love the Lord, and you'll have several generations serving God, and it'll be great. And I mean, they'll be on fire for God. But then it'll start going really good. God will bless that nation, and then they'll start to fall away from God. And the next generation, it starts getting worse and worse. We were looking at that this morning in the Sunday school lesson, how the kings didn't get better. They kept getting worse and worse. And finally, people forget all about God. They'll forget all about His Word. They could care less about what the Bible has to say. And they wind up losing it. The prophet Amos talked about how God was going to send a famine of His Word to them. And He did. It's amazing to me, you find when Jesus and His disciples, boy howdy, the church is on fire and everything's going great 2,000 years ago. Somewhere around 300 AD, 400 AD, people stopped caring so much. There's always been a remnant that's truly cared about the Word of God and truly cared about what God has to say, and they've preserved the Scriptures. But I'm telling you, it wasn't until it was in the 1600s that an English-speaking person was like, you know what, I'd kind of like to have the Bible in English. Amazing! Where was it? Why in the world didn't you want it? For 1,300 years! But all of a sudden he wants the Bible in English. And in 1611, they got the Bible in English. I mean, it's amazing. It took 1,600 years, really. And they went from Greek and Hebrew, but all of a sudden, God did something, and a guy wanted the Bible in English where he could understand it, and all of a sudden, the King James Bible went everywhere. You will find no book having a bigger effect on the world we live in today than the King James Bible. I believe it's the reason the Lord blessed the English language. Do not get me wrong. Jesus spoke Hebrew, okay? He spoke Aramaic in His time. Jesus is a Greek word. Yeshua is the Hebrew word for Jesus. So, I mean, it's not like God is going, I can't do without the English language. It was just that a bunch of English people started getting saved. They started getting serious about serving God, and God gave them the Word. And when you study the guys who sacrificed to get the word into English, William Tyndale was murdered and burned at the stake in 1532 just to preserve the word. I mean, he snuck into Germany and smuggled Bibles in English into England because otherwise the king would kill him. It's absolutely amazing. They had to find the book of the law. The same thing that happened back then is happening today. Today we have Bibles everywhere. I mean, you got a Bible app. I've got a Bible app on my phone. I've got 2 or 3 Bible apps on my phone. You can pull up the Bible anywhere. We'll have 20 of them laying around our houses, but we don't pay attention to them. We're not really interested in them. And America is falling away from God at an exceptional pace. And I believe there's coming a day during the tribulation, somebody's going to find a Bible and be like, whoa, I found the Word of God. The same stuff. That always happens. There's nothing new under the sun, Solomon said. It's all happening again. Anyways, he found the book of the law and he was excited about it. I'm thrilled about that. It says in verse 8, and Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan and he read it. And Shaphan the scribe came to the king and brought the king word again and said, thy servants have gathered the money that was found in the house and have delivered it into the hand of them that do the work, that have the oversight of the house of the Lord. Verse 10. And Shaphan the scribe showed the king, saying, Hilkiah the priest hath delivered me a book. He found something very interesting. And Shaphan read it before the king. Now, imagine being an 8-year-old kid, and you've inherited Israel, or you've inherited Judah at its wickedest point. And now he's 26. He's been living 18 years for the Lord. He's been trying to figure out how to serve the Lord. He doesn't necessarily know what to do, but he's doing what he knows to do. He's repairing the temple of Solomon. He's just trying to do some things right. And then all of a sudden they find the books of Moses. And he gets Exodus read to him. He gets Leviticus read to him. And he's like, whoa, we stopped doing that a long time ago. He gets Numbers read to him. He gets the book of Deuteronomy read to him, which warns. I mean, in Leviticus 26, God warned them, if you disobey me and get off into sin and all this, here's the curses that will come. If you obey me and all, here's the blessings that will come. That's Leviticus 26. I'm sure that chapter piqued his interest. Because he's a king and he needs his nation to do right. That had to shock him. That had to be a very shocking reading. Y'all are, no, we get tired when someone reads one chapter. He got 5 books of the Bible read to him. If you read Leviticus, man alive, that can get pretty monotonous. Oh, this had to be very shocking. It says in verse 11, and it came to pass when the king had heard the words of the book of the law, he rent his clothes. Back then, that was a way we would do something. Whoa! You're kidding! That would be something we would do. They, to show their shock and amazement, they tore their clothes. To show their absolute disgust with our situation is awful. It says in verse 12, and the king commanded Hilkiah the priest, and Ahikam the son of Shaphan, and Akbor the son of Micaiah, and Shaphan the scribe, and Asahiah the servant of the kings, saying, there's 5 guys. He commands them, verse 13, go ye, inquire of the Lord for me. I've heard some really troubling things just now. Will you go check with the Lord and ask him if everything's okay? Will you go check with the Lord? And for the people, and for all Judah, concerning the words of this book that is found. For great is the wrath of the Lord that is kindled against us, because our fathers have not hearkened unto the words of this book, to do according unto all that was that which is written concerning us. So Hilkiah the priest, and Ahikam, and Akbor, and Shaphan, and Asahiah went unto Huldah the prophetess, the wife of Shallum, the son of Tikvah, the son of Harhas, keeper of the wardrobe. It gives you a lot of details there. Now she dwelt in Jerusalem in the college, and they communed with her. And she said unto them, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, tell the man that sent you to me. Now she's speaking on behalf of the Lord. And by the way, when you first read this, the Lord usually calls men and things like that. It's not a good sign. It's not a good sign. It's very telling of your nation when women start actually being genuine prophets. I don't mean anything against women. It's not that they can't. It's that God usually uses a man. This means there wasn't a man available. That's what that means. That means there wasn't a man really trying to live godly. And this is a genuine. She gives them a genuine prophecy right here. This is not false. It goes, tell the man that sent you to me, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will bring evil upon this place, and upon the inhabitants thereof, even all the words of the book which the king of Judah hath read. It's not a good message. King Josiah says, hold on, will you go check with the Lord and see if this stuff's going to happen? And she said, oh yeah, it's going to happen. Oh yeah. Oh. The Lord goes on and says in verse 17, because they have forsaken me and have burned incense unto other gods, that they might provoke me to anger with all the works of their hands, therefore my wrath shall be kindled against this place and shall not be quenched. But, now I love this part. She says, but to the king of Judah, that's Josiah, which sent you to inquire of the Lord, thus shall ye say to him, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, as touching the words which thou hast heard, because thine heart was tender, and thou hast humbled thyself before the Lord, when thou heardest what I spake against this place, and against the inhabitants thereof, that they should become a desolation and a curse, and hast rent thy clothes, and wept before me, I also have heard thee, saith the Lord. I love that part. Behold, therefore, I will gather thee unto thy fathers, and thou shalt be gathered into thy grave in peace, and thine eyes shall not see the evil which I will bring upon this place. And they brought the king word again. By the way, again, I mentioned to you, Josiah passes away at 39. That would be 13 years after this. He doesn't see what the Lord does. He doesn't, because he was tender, because he humbled himself to the Lord, because he got saved, and because, okay, Josiah got saved, he placed his faith and trust in Jesus Christ, and then he started walking with him, and started having a walk with the Lord, started serving him. Because of that, God blessed him and said, you know what, I'm not going to make you see what I'm about to do to your nation. Josiah cared about his nation. He loved Israel. He said, I'm not going to make you watch it. You know those curses I was telling you about in Leviticus 26, you know that stuff that I told you about in Deuteronomy? You know, God saying to Joseph, I'm not going to make you watch it. I'll be merciful. I'll make sure you don't have to watch that stuff. And so I'm glad the Lord has mercy and grace in this. Now, Josiah goes on. He still serves the Lord. I mean, he does some wonderful things. He does that whole, he breaks down the altars and burns the false priests on it. And I mean, he just does some wonderful things for the Lord. Really does some reforms in his nation and all that. But the people don't have a spiritual awakening. I read all of this and go over up to this chapter because I want to ask you this morning, where are we at? How's America doing? How's our nation going? Are we paying attention to what the Lord has to say? Are we real interested in pleasing Him? Or are we just interested in pleasing ourselves and everybody around us? Jeremiah, on the other hand, the man who's writing this book, had to watch all of it. He had to watch every bit of it. Jeremiah wrote this book because at the end of this book they go into captivity to a nation called Babylon, that's present-day Iraq. I don't know why I said Syria was, but they're not. But they go into captivity in Babylon, and Jeremiah is writing to the people and explaining to them why. He's telling them, here's why you're doing that. Here's why you're going into captivity. Here's why this is going to happen to you. And he's showing them why. The Chronicles of the Kings, we'll get to that later on. The Chronicles of the King, it's a lot more positive books than 1st and 2nd Kings. 1st and 2nd Kings is meant to show all of the negativity. It's meant to show, here's why we're going into captivity. Chronicles is written 70 years later, and it's meant to, it's trying to encourage the people to go back to Israel, rebuild the temple, let's rebuild, let's look at the good aspects. You know, I've paid a lot of attention to history, and I've noticed this. History does repeat itself. It really does. The same things that were going on here in 2 Kings is the same stuff we're seeing today. It's the same thing. Very few people really care about what the Lord has to say. I've noticed that. Even though Josiah cares about what the Lord has to say, most of the Israelites didn't. And even though they did what he said and took down the false prophets and all that, the people's heart didn't change. There wasn't a great revival in Josiah's time. Jeremiah, when you read the book of Jeremiah, and he's a prophet at this time, Jeremiah is, if we were to look at his ministry based on numbers, he failed miserably. But he didn't fail. He did exactly what the Lord wanted him to do. Not very many people responded well, but he did exactly what the Lord wanted him to do. He preached the truth. He told them the truth. And the people imprisoned him for it. Not a very good reaction. I don't know if we're in the time of Josiah in our nation. I really don't. I hope not. I really hope not. I don't know. But I'm telling you, pay attention. Look around the world that we live in. What's it looking like? Is it getting godlier? Are we as a whole getting closer to the Lord, or are we getting further? Are we getting further and further and further? Number one, remember everything under the sun isn't changing. You got to realize everything has an end. Everything has an end. My life has an end. This country will end. Even this world, the Bible says, one day will end. Everything under the sun has an end. But there's a place that doesn't have an end. Listen, we read Josiah's life and we're like, wow, he died at 39. What a short life. How sad. No, he served the Lord with those 39 years. He accomplished much in those 39 years under the sun for the Lord. He was a success, and he's living forever in heaven. Everything has an end under the sun. I'd encourage you today, if you don't know Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, if you've never accepted Him, you need to get that right before your life here ends. So one day, you can spend eternity in heaven with Him. The next thing I want you to notice, recognize where we're at. When Josiah heard the book read, he recognized exactly where we're at. He went, wow, we're in trouble. You know, I read the Bible, the Old Testament, and I look at America, I'm like, man, we are in trouble. Coronavirus ain't going to have nothing on what's coming. Coronavirus is scary. I'm not trying to put it down, but it's going to have nothing. We've seen how fast the economy can flip. Wait for it. If people don't get right with God, the economy is going to take a serious tank. Maybe next year, maybe 20 years, I don't know. But I'm telling you, it's coming. Diseases, wars, and rumors of wars is how Jesus described it. The weather patterns are going to be crazy. Everybody thinks that's because of pollution. I'm telling you, it's not because of pollution. It has nothing to do with pollution. It has everything to do... Listen, Jesus said it's not on what's going on the outside, it's what's going on in the in. It's the pollution of men's hearts that is causing that stuff. Recognize where we're at. And take action accordingly. Josiah took action. He did something about it. You know what we can do? Listen, in the midst of all this, and I believe America, we may already be past the point of no return. We may be. I don't know. I didn't have God tap me on the shoulder and say you definitely are. I don't know. Okay, I can't say that. I don't speak with that sort of authority. I'm just looking. There was a point of no return. God told Josiah, no, y'all went too far. Too far. King Manasseh took you guys way too far. And it explains that later on. because of the sins of Manasseh. It might be 2 Chronicles that explains that. But man, God said, no, y'all have gone too far. I'm not. But then he says, but I'm going to be merciful to you, Josiah. I'm going to be merciful to you. Do you know, in the midst of what's coming on America, he can still be merciful to you, and you, and you, and you, and me. In the midst of what's going to happen to America, he can still be merciful to us. Do you know we can still get saved? You know, when you read about the tribulation period on the earth, and the Bible says there's never been a worse time than that, people will still be getting saved during the tribulation period. They will still be getting saved. In the midst of everything going wrong, some people will be going right. Some people will still be getting saved and forgiven of their sins and calling on the Lord. Listen, in the midst of what's coming, we can still get saved if we're not. And saved people can still serve the Lord. We can still walk with Him even if nobody else is. Hey, listen, though no one join me, still I will follow. You know what you'll find when you read, I mentioned to you, Isaiah got cut in half by King Manasseh. Jeremiah gets thrown in prison. History has it that he was probably stoned to death in Egypt by his own people. All these prophets. Jonah is in the belly of a whale. Micaiah is thrown in jail by Ahab. Elijah is tracked down by Ahab and Jezebel. And Elisha is chased down. You want to know something? Some of them they died martyrs' deaths. Some of them didn't. Elisha died in his bed. He had a king after him. He died of natural causes. Elijah had a king after him. He didn't die. Remember the fiery chariot? Didn't even have to. Do you realize if you'll just get with God, if you will just determine it, you know what? I'm going to get with God. Even if nobody else is. If you'll be like King Josiah, my whole country stinks. Everything out here stinks. All their religions stink. Their whole heart stinks. Everything about their mind stinks. You know what? I want the Lord. I want the Lord. My heart stinks. My mind, I want Him to clean me up. I want Him to forgive me of my sins. If you'll just get with God, let Him have you. Oh. I'm telling you, your life can be worthwhile while everyone else is living absolutely worthless lives. It's not going to matter because everything under the sun has an end. If you'll be like Josiah and say, you know what, I want to get saved and I want to get serving the Lord, none of that other stuff will matter. None of that other stuff. It's important, listen to me, that we recognize the day we're in. It's very important. How many people are here this morning? Let's count them. 2, 3, 4, 5. Count the adults. Kids don't matter. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. My daughter is sick this morning. That's why my wife isn't here. 15. You know how many doors I've knocked and invited people to church? Many of them more than once. Every door around here. Every door in Idabel. Every door in Garvin. Every door in Milton. Now I'm going to say this. I really hope it's because they have a good solid church they're already going to. I really do. I'm not trying to put that down. Some of them, but most of them are not in church at all. They're not in their Bible. They could care less what God has to say. In fact, most of them wouldn't give me the time of day to even listen to me when I went and visited them. You recognize the day we're in? I don't like it. I don't like the day we're in. But we don't get to choose which day we're in. I was griping to a preacher friend the other day. I said, I don't like the day we live in. I mean, it's hard to get people to even want to serve the Lord or even want to go to church or even want to get in their Bible. It's really difficult. He said, well, you don't get to pick the day you live in. I'm like, well, thanks a lot. See if I can come to you for counsel ever again. No. Do we recognize where we're at? it is astonishing to me that I can open this book at pretty well any point and start preaching it, and it shocks all of us. They opened the book and it shocked Josiah. Isn't that very telling to where we're at? Let's recognize where we're at. I want to encourage you this morning, if you're not saved, won't you just stop? Just stop and call on the Lord. Ask Jesus Christ to forgive you of your sins this morning. He will. He said He would. He had mercy on Josiah, even though judgment was sure of his nation. He had mercy on Josiah. Won't you stop and just call on the Lord this morning? Maybe this morning you're already saved. Won't you rededicate your life this morning? Won't you let the Lord have you? You can do that right now. I want to ask every head to bow, every eye closed. Won't you recognize the day we're in and get with the Lord?